Joining me to discuss the current crisis in Yemen is Osman Bakhach, a Middle East politics expert who joins us from Beirut. Baraa Shiban is a Yemeni human rights activist who joins us from London. And joining me on set is Sama'a Al-Hamdani, a Yemeni humanitarian specialist. Thanks to all of you for joining us. Osman, as we've been reporting, events have been moving very fast. The president has escaped house arrest. He's now in the southern part of the country, rescinded his resignation, says he's still the president. What kind of impact is all of this having on the country?
Well, as you put it, indeed, the country is on the brink of civil war. But we need to bear in mind that all what you have described in this mini report is really addressing the tip of the iceberg. In other words, we are addressing the symptoms of the root problem. In reality, as I see it, the Yemen as a society and country is a victim of the feuding Western policies. This threat, the so-called threat by AKAP, Al-Qaeda, is fictionary. This whole threat was blown out of proportion by America to justify its intervention in Yemen, all along with the collaboration of Iran. So actually, we are talking about a complex regional power struggle. It's American who have supported, who have encouraged the Houthi all along to seek more power, and with the support of the Iranian. So we are talking about, in a way, a strategic alliance between America and Iran for America to be able to spread its influence and dominion over Yemen. So sadly, this translates into local internal strife, and it may end up as being a civil war between the warring parties. This issue of Qaeda, AKP, is no more than a bogeyman. It's a scarecrow used by the American to justify their tacit and rather explicit alliance with the Iranian, who have fully supported the Houthi into this wild dash for grab of power, seeking to impose their will upon the majority of the Yemeni. Basically, unless and until this foreign intervention stop in Yemen, we fear that the Yemeni situation will see further deterioration and possibly a lot of bloodshed.
Okay, Baraa, do you agree that the problems that Yemen is facing right now is not of its own making, that it has to be blamed on what we've just been told by Osman on foreign intervention?
Well, I think certainly there is definitely a role for the international community that they played a significant role in the past 3 years in Yemen, and they were supposed to be supervising the political transition in the country. But I usually do actually blame the Yemeni people, because the Houthis, who expanded all the way from Sada, that's the up north down to the capital, are Yemenis. The Yemeni political parties are actually failed to come together and reach to their solutions on a daily basis. And I think the main problem that faced President Hadi was the lack of transparency. While we were facing many problems, actually, the Yemeni president failed repeatedly to come up and actually address those problems and issues to the public, until we woke up one day that the Houthis are actually on the borders of Sana'a. There are many issues that were actually quite kept behind, that the international community definitely failed. Osman mentioned the role of the United States regarding counterterrorism. The role of the United States was supposed to be bigger than that. They were supposed to be supervising the reform of the security and military sector in the country. All their focus was on the continuation of their drone strikes in the country, and the continuation of their counterterrorism efforts inside the country. So definitely they do take part of the blame why the situation has reached to this level. And I think also with the way that the balance of power they tried to create between the Houthis from one side and their opponents from the other side, including the Muslim Brotherhoods, did actually play a role into why the situation has actually collapsed and why the government has submitted their resignation along with the president.
Okay, Sama, which side of the divide do you fall on? Is Yemen right now on the brink of a civil war, as we've been hearing, a civil war between factions inside the country because of rivalries between different groups? Or is this something being stirred by outside forces?
So there are outside forces, but however, on the ground, there's been conflict for a while. Yemen has been on the brink for a very long time. We've read this on the news. So it's starting to, we're starting to question, is Yemen on the brink, or is this their way of maintaining stability when there's no government, when there's no actual authority on the ground? So ever since 2011, what we had is a former president removed from his position. He ruled for 33 years, and then you had so many powers that have not come to power before. They're all struggling to hold and take control of Yemen. So what they did is they decided that they're going to proceed forward by the creation of a national government, a unity government, and by the creation of a national dialogue conference that was mediated by the UN and by other Western governments. So the national dialogue was supposed to be a few months, but it ran from March 2012, I think, actually 2013, until January 2014. And this dialogue was supposed to save Yemen from the brink, as we
So you'd have some kind of a loose federation of different regions?
Well, that's what they wanted to do. At the end of the national dialogue, they wanted to create a system where Yemen is going to be divided into several federal states. But the problem is this national dialogue, when it was taking place, the government decided to suspend all of its activities, waiting for the outcomes of the dialogue. And the national dialogue was just kind of a paper exercise. They didn't actually do anything on the ground. They were working on rewriting a constitution, and they were working on creating a federal state. But there's no outreach programs. All of this was kind of happening in a vacuum. So you had an official process that was supposed to save Yemen, but on the ground, the people themselves on the ground weren't aware of this process. There was no outreach to them, and political players took advantage of that. Everybody's competing for power. And so the people on the ground, the Yemeni people, took advantage of outside players to support them expand their power on the ground. And the outside players were happy to assist because they want to influence Yemen because of its very strategic position at the tip of the Arabian Peninsula.
All right. Osman, we might have outside interference in Yemen, but if we look at the situation inside the country and we look at the different rivalries between groups, you have the Houthis, you have the government trying to retain power, you have Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, you've got a separatist group in the south. What are the broad fault lines of this conflict inside the country? Who's who here?
Well, there are, it's a good question. There are two sides to this equation. One is internal indeed, and one is external. Internal, we are talking about the Houthi in the north. We are talking about the Muslim Brotherhood in the Liqa Mushtarak. We are talking about the strongman of the Yemeni politics, the General Congress led by Ali Abdullah Saleh, the ex-president who was deposed. So these are the major players internally. I maintain Al-Qaeda is not a strong player. It's rather, its threat is magnified for another purpose. But then again, this internal dynamic could have been very well contained if it wasn't for the external support backing by the American and Iranian for the Houthi. That's what drove Yemen into full-blown crisis. The American ambassador in Yemen openly expressed support for the Houthi. And on the other hand, Hadi, the Yemeni President Hadi, he tried all he can, and mind you, I'm not defending him, Mr. Hadi here, but he tried to absorb the Houthi demand. He gave several concessions, but the Houthi appetite for more and more power became endless. Now, the Houthi have gotten to a point where they have too much, they have made a bigger bite that they cannot swallow, they cannot digest. There is no way Houthi can dominate and rule by force the whole of Yemen.
Yeah, well,
and this create the environment for a full-blown conflict.
All right, well, they certainly are in control of the capital right now. Sama'a, you wanted to say?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the internal players. They are not just three, as he mentioned. I think that we have political parties like the GPC, General People's Congress, the Islah Party, new parties. Even the Houthis have a political party called Ansar Allah. And outside of that, we have the tribes, we have the sultanates, we have the sheikhs. And then if you're going to create a bigger picture, it's going to be a north-south divide. And then within the north, you have divides within. So you have the Houthi movement, you have the Ta'izzi people, and the people in Ib who refuse to be part of that. You have the Taham and Hirak, which is on the coast of Yemen, right in the northern part of Yemen. And then in the south, you have a southern Hirak movement. You have the youth of that movement trying to generate another movement. And the southern Hirak movement within itself is a coalition group. It's kind of like an umbrella group that contains several movements within. Right. And then you have people calling for independence within these movements. So it's very complex. And I think to just sum it up into a few players would be very hard. But what we're seeing right now is we have two presidents, two ex-presidents, one president who handed in his resignation and then withdrew it. So he is still officially the president. And you have political players, you have the Houthis who are now taking center stage, but they are not more important than other players on the ground. They are in 11 governorates out of 21 in Yemen. However, they're not there through the approval of everyone. They took control of Sana'a, but let's not assume that everybody in Sana'a is in support of the Houthi movement. Sana'a and Aden, where President Hadi is resigning right now, are both very diverse cities. Right. Those two cities have people from all over Yemen, and it's very hard to just dub a city as a part of a specific movement or a group. Okay,
let me go to Baraa in London. Baraa, how likely is it that there would be an alliance between Iran and the United States, as Osman is contending, to destabilize Yemen on the one hand? On the other, I want you to also address the whole question of this National Dialogue Conference. What happened to that? I mean, there was a plan here to have a loose federation of regions in Yemen that the belief was would bring some kind of stability to the country. That didn't happen.
I mean, I think the role of the United States, as I earlier mentioned, was mainly focused on their counterterrorism efforts. And since the Houthis were willing actually to act and play the role of what the United States were for many years trying to avoid to do, that's having boots on the ground, the United States seemed that might not be a bad idea, actually. We can continue having our drone strikes from the sky, and we have the Houthi rebels on the ground fighting, instead of us sending our own troops on the ground and more likely being killed in the battles. And I think this kind of relationship, I'm not sure actually to what level the communication, and I highly doubt that there is an actual direct communication between the Houthis and the United States, but actually definitely the situation helps in a sort of a way. The enemy of my enemies is my friend. Regarding the situation that the Houthis are in control of the many provinces in the northern part of Yemen, let's not forget that the provinces that are rich with oil and gas are not under the control of the Houthis, which makes them don't have access to resources. In other words, they don't have the capacity and the capability actually to pay the wages for the public sector. And I think this is one of the main challenges that the Houthis are facing right now. Even in some cities that are supposed to give them some resources, like the port of Hodeidah, west of Sana'a, the actually income of the port of Hodeidah has dropped since the Houthis took control of the city to almost 50%. And I think these many challenges are challenges that I think the Houthis will have to face very soon, and will have to find answers very soon. Let me just go back quickly to your questions. You asked about the national dialogue.
Right.
The national dialogue role was to come up with this document that would state the shape of the coming constitution, and it actually did that. But actually, what's happened is that the government and the president failed to act quickly to the recommendations and decisions made inside the national dialogue. In other words, we had, as an example, a decision to issue the transitional justice law, as an example, and the president failed to issue that, despite the many requests by many political factions inside the country that we need a transitional justice law. We need to have a reconciliation program within the government, but all of that kept being delayed. The government was supposed to be changed immediately after the national dialogue, and that didn't happen. So all these failures, and I think there was a lack of transparency, that there were many accumulative problems that the Hadi thought that he can keep in control.
All right, Baraa.
And didn't actually tell the people.
Okay, Baraa,
yeah.
We are going to have to take a break right now. Coming up, we look at the security situation. Does Yemen risk becoming a fertile ground for ISIL? Stay with us. You're watching The Heat.